Have you ever heard a real US history story so wild it sounds like a Netflix conspiracy thriller? Until you realize it involved a vice president, secret allies, whispered empires, and a treason trial that nearly rewrote the Constitution. This is the Burr Conspiracy, and it's one of the strangest, what was he really planning? Mysteries in American history. It starts with Aaron Burr, former Revolutionary War officer, political operator, and the third vice president of the United States. After his term ended, Burr's career was already smoldering, and then it collapsed into scandal. But instead of fading away, Burr headed west into the Ohio Valley and the edge of America's frontier, where land was cheap, loyalties were flexible, and a new nation still felt like something you could invent if you were bold enough. And this is where the legend begins. Burr was accused of trying to build his own country, not metaphorically, literally. According to the allegations, Burr was recruiting men, gathering supplies, and using frontier connections to carve out an independent realm somewhere in the vast, messy space around the Mississippi River, the old Southwest, and the newly acquired Louisiana Purchase. In other versions of the rumor, he wasn't just separating land. He was preparing to invade Spanish territory, Texas, Mexico, or Florida, like a private warlord with a national-scale ambition. Was it real? That's the problem, because Burr's true plan is still debated. Burr himself insisted he was pursuing a legitimate scheme. He claimed he had interests in land in Spanish Texas and was planning settlement or farming, not rebellion. But around him, the whispers were growing louder. Secession, conquest, a new empire with Burr at the top. Now enter the most dangerous man in the story, General James Wilkinson. Wilkinson was the commanding general of the U.S. Army at the time, an unbelievably powerful position, and he was also, by reputation, one of the most slippery characters of the era. He became one of Burr's key partners until he decided the whole thing was going to fail, and that's when the knife went in. Instead of backing Burr, Wilkinson flipped sending information to President Thomas Jefferson and presenting a letter as evidence of Burr's treason. In a story filled with double crosses, this is the moment everything turns from shady frontier scheme into national emergency. Jefferson did not treat this like a misunderstanding. He treated it like a threat to the Republic. In 1807, Burr was arrested on Jefferson's orders and charged with treason. And here's what makes this case legendary. The United States was still young enough that the definition of treason, what it actually meant, what it required, wasn't just a legal question. It was a constitutional one. Burr's trial became a national spectacle. The government wanted him crushed. Burr's defense fought on the precise wording of the Constitution. And in the end, Burr was acquitted of treason, largely because the prosecution couldn't meet the strict constitutional standard required to prove it. But even though he walked free, Burr didn't escape. His reputation was incinerated. Across the country, people burned him in effigy. His political future was over, and with threats of further charges looming at state level, Burr eventually went into exile in Europe, alive but finished. So what was the Burr Conspiracy really? A genuine attempt to break apart America, a half-baked invasion plot aimed at Spanish lands, a land and money scheme that got interpreted as treason, or a political takedown fueled by fear and opportunism. That's why this story still grips people, because it sits right on the edge of history where motives are blurry, witnesses are compromised, and the line between ambitious and traitor depends on who's telling the story. And if you want the creepiest thought in the whole saga, it's this. If Burr had been more organized, if Wilkinson had stayed loyal, if Jefferson had reacted slower, American history might look very, very different.